this video, we're going to go over how to make this segmented bowl out of maple. The planks that I had for this project were cracked, and so I couldn't really use them for a solid surface piece. So I made a straight edge on it, and then using the guide on my circular saw, I cut it into 2-inch strips. And with the part left over, I cut a circle out on my jigsaw to be the base of the bowl. It doesn't look pretty, but I then clamped it to a waste block that I could put on my lathe. And now that it's on the lathe, I'm just going to make the sides of it perfectly round. And then once that's done, I'm going to move my tool rest to the face of the piece so that I can help make that as flat as possible. Now we need to figure out how to cut the segments. These angles are what we're aiming to find right here. And in a circle there's 360 degrees. And we have 10 segments in here, so we need to find that first degree right there. So 360 divided by our 10 pieces gives us 36. So that's our angle right there. Now in a triangle, there's 180 degrees. So we take 180, we minus our 36 that we already found, which gives us 144. But since there's 2 of them, we need to divide it by 2. Therefore, 144 divided by 2 is 72. So there's our angle that we need to get. So now we pull out the miter saw, set our angle at 72 degrees, and in between each cut, I'm going to flip it over and then move the piece against the stop block. And that gives us an even piece every time. And I'm going to do this until I have 10 segments to put in a ring. Now, like I said before, this wood that I got had lots of cracks going through it, and so as I'm cutting these pieces, I'm checking to make sure that there's going to be no cracks in them. And if there are, then I just simply cut that piece off and throw it away and start again on the next piece. And now that we have them all cut out, I'm just going to take 2 pieces at a time and glue them together. Once the glue dries, then I'm going to glue those pieces together until I get 5 sections glued together at a time. So then 2 halves of the circle. I don't glue it all together at the same time, and you'll find out why in just a minute. So now I have the 2 halves that are glued together, and I take them out of a hose clamp and I put them on sandpaper, and I need to sand down the halves. The reason why is, as perfect as I want to try and make my angles, I can never get it exactly perfect. And so when we put our halves on a flat surface and then sand them, then that helps close the gap. Once we have the gap all closed, then I like to lay the pieces down on their side and sand them, and this helps us get ready to glue it up to the piece that's already on the lathe. Now that we have our gap closed and we have our sides flat, it's time to glue them up. So we just glue those 2 pieces together, put them in a hose clamp, and then tighten it up. My camera ran out of batteries as I was gluing the ring onto the base of the bowl, but I'll go over that later on in the video. Right here, I'm just making it round like we did with the base plate of the bowl at the beginning of the video. And this just helps to give us a flat surface to glue the next ring on top of this ring. Now as I'm doing the face here, the goal is to take off as little material as possible. We just need it to be flat to get ready to glue the next ring onto it, so we don't need to go crazy with carving a whole lot off here. But once I get it to the point where I think it's flat enough, then I'll actually move my tool rest and I'll take a flat surface, put sandpaper on it, and then and sand it. That way we know it's perfectly flat to get ready for the next piece to be glued onto it. Then we take it off the lathe and get ready to glue the next piece onto it. Now the next ring was built with the same process that we talked about before, and I just put the piece on it, trace where it needs to go, put glue down, spread the glue around, and then put the piece back onto it. And you'll need a little bit of weight to just hold it down steady. Now we have all the rings on there, and the first thing that we need to do is just shape the outside of the bowl. For all this shaping right now, I'm just using my roughing chisel. Once you get the outside into the shape that you want, you move the tool rest to inside the bowl and do the same process. And just try to even it out and make it perfectly round. Once you get it perfectly round, then you can switch from the roughing chisel to a scraper. I like using the scraper because it doesn't take a whole lot of material off on each pass, but it still does enough that it doesn't take too long to get the shape of the bowl that you want. Once you get your desired shape, it's time to start sanding it. I start with 80 grit sandpaper and move up through the grits all the way up to 400. I put a piece of cloth in between the sandpaper and my fingers just so it doesn't get too hot. And once all the sanding is done, I'm just parting it off with the parting tool. Once I get these two pieces separated, I'm going to turn it around in my cold jaws, and I'm just going to sand that bottom out since my cold jaws didn't really give a whole lot of support to gripping the bowl. And there's the finished product. You can use it for whatever you like. We're putting old Christmas candy in there, or we're holding binkies for the baby, or you can wear it as a fancy hat. Or you can put your favorite breakfast cereal in there. Do whatever you like. Thanks for taking the time out to watch us through this process of making a segmented bowl, and please subscribe for later videos and to be updated on the next project. Thanks.